long have you been a DJ for at Memphis State?
I've been here about a year and a half now.
You have? And,
yeah.
But you're not a student, right?
No, I'm not a student. I'm a volunteer.
You're a volunteer. You volunteered to do this?
Yeah.
Your show's at 6 o'clock in the morning? You volunteer to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning?
6 till 10.
I mean, I know that they know you as a, quote-unquote, the pilot of the Jazz Jet. Is that right? Why do they call you that?
I was looking for a handle, a pseudonym. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't think of any name. And so I thought try to think of a little concept. So I said I'd be the pilot of a jazz jet. And all the people that listen to my show regularly are frequent flyers. You know.
Malvin Massey Jr. had a voice made for jazz radio. It was distinctive, unique, and one of a kind. Malvin was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. After graduating from Hamilton High School on the city's south side, he served his country in the U.S. Air Force for 4 years, then began his radio career at WCRV, a local Christian radio station. Malvin earned a bachelor's degree from Memphis State University and played saxophone in the university's jazz band. He also received his broadcast certificate from Columbia School of Broadcasting. In the mid-'70s, Memphis State started an on-campus radio station. The station developed into WUMR with a unique format. It played all jazz all the time. In 1988, Malvin became a volunteer DJ at the station with a jazz show called Images of Jazz that lasted for 30 years.
Sundays I do the Images of Jazz program.
Images of Jazz?
Yeah, I mix it up. Then I play something for everybody then, mainstream, contemporary, fusion, and new age. I try to mix it up. Start off with mainstream, do about an hour of contemporary music. And then mix it up.
This is the Jazz Lover, U92 FM, Images of Jazz with Malvin Massey.
Quand les photos ne sont pas assez, les images du jazz sur 92 FM.
If jazz had a human voice, it was Malvin Massey's. Malvin sounded like jazz. We don't know how many people were reached and affected over the many, many years that he was on the air playing music. We have no clue what that number could be. But what we do know, what we are sure of, is whatever the number was, they were all happier. They were all made to feel better.
Along with being the voice of jazz, Malvin Massey was also a promoter of jazz and jazz artists, especially musicians from his hometown, Memphis.
The hottest Memphis musician, I'd say, would be Kirk, that we play his new album, The Promise. We get a bunch of requests for that.
I, as a very needy jazz artist, local/international artist, and by the way, that's a very important distinctive, that you're on the international scene, but just so happens that you're from this place. Everybody's from somewhere. I am from Memphis. And so, the prophet is not without honor, except in one place, and that's in his or her hometown. So, as that artist, here in a jazz format, there was a doorkeeper, and his name was Malvin Massey. I'm playing alongside Gerald Albright and Sweet James and Charles Lloyd and all these other great saxophonists, other artists. So the fact that Malvin Massey in the late 80s showed me as an artist, a local/international artist, radical hospitality, and he kept doing it over and over again. He said, when you come out with something, just let me know. It's on.
While volunteering at WUMR, the pilot met his co-pilot, Phyllis. She was also a jazz lover who happened to call the station one day looking for a particular song. The man who answered the phone told her to come by the station and he'd get her a copy. She did, and found out the man on the phone was Malvin Massey. They were married on September 9th, 1992. 9/2/92, and he spent the rest of his life with Phyllis. For the next 17 years, Malvin continued to volunteer at WUMR and became music director, program director, and in 2009, the general manager of WUMR, one of only 8 full-time all-jazz stations in the U.S. To scores of university broadcasting and journalism students, Malvin was a teacher, a mentor, and a role model. And for many adults aspiring to be radio personalities, he gave them the opportunity to learn and helped them make their dreams come true.
I was a student at the University of Memphis. I think I was maybe a sophomore or junior, and one of my classmates worked at the university station, U92, and she told me they were looking for a news director, and I was a broadcast journalism major. So I went down to the basement where the station was located, and there was Malvin Massey, the program director. He interviewed me. The first thing I noticed about Malvin was definitely his smile. He has this smile that just lights up the room, and then the personality to go along with it. He was just so nice and so gracious, and he just was full of encouraging words. He told me, "I know you're gonna do great at this."
I was allowed to have a specialty show. I was the Smooth Angel. Mondays 4 till 6, and I got to bring the very best in smooth jazz. It don't get no smoother than that. That was me. Malvin was the godfather of jazz to me in Memphis in terms of it being getting the airplay that it needed to get, and being an advocate for jazz, and being a spokesperson for jazz, and one of the most knowledgeable people that I know in the city as it pertains to jazz. He was just top dog at what he did. He really was.
There is only the one genre, and that's jazz. And like Duke Ellington said, music is beyond category. This was these different genres, smooth jazz and all of that, are strictly marketing tools from the record labels and some of the artists and radio stations and what have you. But they, as a matter of fact, they had to think of something to categorize things strictly to make money off of it. And for BMI and those people, so they can tell who to pay for composing this music and this and that. But as far as the genre itself, it's all jazz. And it's all been in there all the time. The smooth part of it, the acid jazz part, it's all been in there the whole time.
I called University of Memphis, and Malvin was about giving people opportunity. And I was a recipient of that opportunity. I'm ever so grateful. I know you didn't ask me this, but I'm ever so grateful because I got an opportunity to do something that I've always wanted to do. I got an opportunity to be somebody else, and I enjoyed that. And for that time, it was the best non-paying job I ever had.
So I was actually, it was my senior year at the University of Memphis. And I was looking for an internship, and my instructor at the time, who was overseeing like where I would be having this internship, says, "Hey, you want to work at a radio station?" He walked me from the music building all the way down into the office, and there, stacked with CDs, you only see the shining head of Malvin Massey there, and he gets up, and this tall man goes, "Oh, hey, so you must be the new intern. You like music? You like jazz?" Yeah, and it just fell from there. I think one of my favorite things was going into the studio, and you're preparing for the show, and you start playing some music, and then you just see the shadow of Malvin just coming into the on-air room. And he goes, "What are you playing? That's bad, man. That's so bad."
On the show, I went as Steve Moore, and I started with a guy called Phil Webster, and we had the Jazz and More show. He was always a joy. He loved it when my daughter started working with us. He loved that a young person was in the studio and she loved Mr. Malvin and loved Phyllis, and it was just always a good time. I'm gonna miss Sunday morning, getting up, cooking breakfast, and Malvin's not on the air anymore. That's what I miss the most, because that was what Sunday morning meant to me.
It's so amazing that the Europeans subsidize their culture. We here in America, we don't subsidize our culture. When
things get tight in school systems, the first thing they do is drop the music program because they have to buy band instruments and uniforms and stuff. In Europe, the government will step in and say, no, our culture is important enough for us to use your tax money to keep it going.
When I originally called the station, I was calling because I had taken a leadership class and I was told that, okay, with your voice, let's do something with it. I graduated from U of M and I said, well, let me call and see if I can do something over there. Called Malvin. So he said, okay, well, I don't have any voiceovers for you to do right now, but with your voice, why not have a spot? And I said, have a spot? He said, yeah, with that voice, you can do radio. So it was really Soulful Jazz Mondays with Toya the Voice Mason. I believe that what I'll miss most about Malvin is his encouragement. Malvin was an encourager.
Early 2016, I entered the studio because I had some time on my hands. I'd left my job of 30 years and had plans for, creating like a new second phase of life, right? Made an appointment with Malvin, 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. He was in the studio and he came in and showed me the controls for a few minutes and walked out, left me in there for 2 hours. And as someone else asked me, so well, was that hard? I said, no, I actually enjoyed it because I had thousands of CDs around me, jazz CDs around me to play with. So it was fun, and that was my introduction to Malvin. WUMR was a light for not only jazz, but for all Memphis music. We did play some Memphis blues, or blues section as well. We had a Memphis section. We focused on Memphis artists, Phineas Newborn, Booker Little, all the great pianists, Harold Mayburn. And so along with that, I think that elevated all of Memphis music because WUMR was one of 8 all jazz stations 24/7 in the United States. And as a result of that, people around the world knew Malvin Massey. And he went to conventions and conferences and was on boards and just across the world, people literally around the world knew who he was. And as a result of that, they knew about the Memphis market. They knew how important WUMR was to jazz and music in Memphis. Well, Malvin was such a great guy. He gave me a chance to share music with people when I really needed it.
Despite the efforts of Malvin Massey, the volunteer jazz DJs, loyal supporters of WUMR, and the local Jazz Lovers Nation, FM 92, the Jazz Lovers Station, went off the air at 6 o'clock p.m. on Monday evening, March 30th, 2020. Ending nearly 4 decades of playing America's classic, original African-American art form, jazz. Malvin had retired from WUMR a few weeks prior to the station going dark, but fortunately, it was not the end of his career in jazz radio. A few years earlier, one of his childhood friends, Howard Robertson, and Larry Robinson, founder and CEO of the Kazukian Network, a podcast production company, had created a 1-hour podcast radio show called Riffin' on Jazz.
The Kazukian Network presents Riffin' on Jazz with your host, Howard Robertson and Malvin Massey.
Sonny Rollins.
You got to improve, man. You got Coltrane.
We were all sitting around talking on jazz is what brought Howard and Malvin together with Kazukian. Howard was already here, but Malvin had just started working with us because of what we were supplying to WUMR. But when Riffin' on Jazz, when he and Howard got together and the show Riffin' on Jazz was created, that was it. It was a match made in heaven, and he was part of the family from that moment on.
We thought that it would be very unusual, but very natural and organic to have a show, now that we're old cats, to have a show where we sit down and we talk about jazz, and we talk about jazz like we learned it, and talk about what we learned. And that's it. And we came up with the opening, Riffin' on Jazz is your weekly visit with friends, talking about the music that we love, that classic African-American art form called jazz.
Why should I care about jazz? Why should I like jazz?
Because it's the root of everything else. It's the root of everything you got, everything you do like.
It is history.
Okay, it is steeped in either gospel or jazz.
And it is
or blues.
I'm your girl Cookie B, and
I'm Malvin Massey.
With Blues in the Basement.
When it came to music, Malvin was always open to new opportunities. So when he was asked to become the co-host of another Kazukian podcast radio show, Blues in the Basement, alongside the incredible personality of Cookie B, Malvin proved once again his love for music included more than jazz. He loved the blues just as much.
Oh, I really got to know the man, the myth, the legend, my Malvin, the professor, as I called him. And all of my friends started calling him the professor. That voice, come on, you know.
In late 2020, Malvin was diagnosed with cancer and began a lengthy treatment program that kept him out of the studio for several months. Now, I had worked with Malvin at WUMR and had known him for over 25 years. Well, one day, Larry, Howard, and Malvin had a meeting, and I was asked to become a regular co-host on the show. It was an invitation that I quickly accepted. Playing music is an art. It takes training, practice, and a passion if you really want to get good at it. Well, Malvin recognized that in jazz and respected the art and the people who played and created the music. It's a characteristic you don't find much in today's music. People create music just to be popular and make money. Malvin didn't care about being popular. He just enjoyed playing good music, and I'm going to really miss him for that. In 2022, when Malvin was unable to continue doing the Riffin' on Jazz show, recording artist Deborah Sweeney, another Memphis native and jazz lover, was asked to become the third member of the team. She too was a friend of Malvin's and recalls the many things he helped her accomplish in her career.
When I first contacted Malvin about the release of my CD, Malvin was so receptive and he was looking forward to playing my project, which really made me feel good. I just miss Malvin from knowing he's not around. I'm so glad to really be a part of Riffin' on Jazz. So thank you. I want to thank Malvin. Rest in peace. We miss you and we love you and we'll never forget you because Malvin was jazz.
I was introduced to Malvin by Jack Cooper, who is the director of jazz studies at the University of Memphis. And that was many, many years ago. And Malvin was hosting a show. Jack Cooper and the Orchestra of the Delta was playing, and the guest was Memphian and jazz trumpeter Marvin Stam, for whom I grew up with and my wife grew up with. That's when I said, he's got an incredible voice. I mean, listen to him talk. He's like Mr. Jazz voice.
Featuring Bill Easley, Bernard Purdy,
and I made it a point to keep my relationship going with Malvin. And through the Mid-South Jazz Foundation, we all coordinated on when WMR was doing their fundraising every year. We at the foundation supported and helped with that. And when the foundation was doing various events here, Malvin was part of that. That station
is the Jazz Lover Morning Show, U92 FM.
Was the foundation
as we continue the best
of a lot of things that happened in this city. Okay, and Malvin was part of that.
In about 3 minutes
I used to join Malvin every Sunday morning on his Monday morning show. I didn't have a speaking role. I didn't say anything, but when he was in between records, we were talking about artists. We were talking about jazz things happening in Memphis. How can we improve that? Golly, what a kind, gentle soul that man was. And we were all on the same track. I loved it. I loved him.
In the meantime, I want to remind you that yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery. Today is a gift,
That's why it's called The Present. From the pilot, the co-pilot, and Miss Ruthie, you have a great day and keep it tuned to the Jazz Lover, U92 FM.
On October 29th, 2022, the pilot, Malvin Massey, took his final flight and laid the jazz jet to rest. For well over 30 years, with his loving wife by his side, he lived his life doing what he was put here to do, what he loved to do, and what he enjoyed doing, playing that classic African-American art form called jazz.